Here with me I have an anonymous, inexperienced learner of English who has watched every single video cast so far, and she has told me that she's made amazing progress. So, she's going to prove it by telling us who this person is. Now, anonymous student, who is this person?
I can't see.
Okay. So, who is this person?
Sharon Stone. Yes.
Sharon Stone. Welcome to Patética Fonética.
Hi, welcome back to Patética Fonética. We're in the third part of the series where we're going to be talking about the main problems that you might experience when you are getting to know English. The main problems with pronunciation. The first problem that you might be likely to have will be the problem that we see everywhere. Whenever there is an SP or an ST sound at the beginning of a word, which you're not used to, so Spanish people will be very likely to add an E on the beginning, as in the case of Steven Spielberg. One name that covers both of those examples.
I have to walk slowly because the street is covered with snow. I have to walk slowly because the street is covered with snow.
Right, the second problem that you are likely to come across is the V sound. And letter-wise, it's exactly the same, but in Spanish, this letter is pronounced midway between the English V and the English B. For me, at least. This is the way I understand it.
What Chris is talking about here is not exactly an exotic sound between B and V. It's not between B and V. It's just a different kind of B that we have in Spanish. This is a bit of a mess. In Spanish, for example, I can tell you right away, the V sound has never existed in standard Spanish, and any expert will tell you that.
The V sound has never existed in the standard Spanish.
So, what is that funny sound that Chris was trying to describe when he said, something between a B and a V? Well, it happens to be a kind of a B. It's an allophone of the B phoneme, and it's pronounced V. Now, we say that in Spanish between two vowel sounds. So in a sentence like ven a ver esto, we say ven a ver. We don't say ven a ver. We don't say ven a ver. We say ven a ver esto, between two vowels. Why is this relevant? Because we do the same thing when we speak English. So we say, I met a boy. And we say a boy. Well, that's not English. It's a boy. They only have one allophone of the B phoneme. So in English is, think about this. Think about a boy. Alright?
Remember, don't say biking when you really mean Viking. If you want to say vote, don't say boat. And if you plan to say veer, make sure you don't say beer.
Right, the next problem that you're likely to come across is the problem of consonant clusters. And in Spanish, there aren't very many clusters of 3 consonants together. But at the end of many English words, there are.
I'm talking to Spaniards once. They said they were talking about astro, and Astro, what's Astro? I mean, that means star. But they were talking about the Tour de France, the cyclist Armstrong, and because they couldn't say the R and the M and the N and the G, they just left it out and said Astro, and it took me a long time to figure that out.
Right, now we come across, in position 4, one example of a pronunciation problem that I can understand. In Spanish there are only 5 vowel sounds. In English there are 5 vowel letters but 12 vowel sounds. So you need to learn to be able to distinguish one from the other. A, I, A, O, U, and of course the O and the E and all of the other vowel sounds that are mixed in together. So the difference between ship and sheep is something that you need to learn.
Ahora preste atención y dígame qué vocal oye. A, como en blood.
Me suena como una A.
A, como en cat.
Me suena como una A.
A, como en America.
Me suena como una O.
A, como en hot.
Me suena como una A.
Entonces a usted todo le suena como una A.
Sí, menos una que he dicho una O.
So, finally on the list, we come to problem number 5, and this is a very difficult problem for Spanish people. The problem of the difference between s and sh, especially. So the sh sound is one that Spanish people don't recognize and have difficulty making. It's a problem that doesn't exist in Castellano, but there are examples of that sound in Spanish from other places in Spain, other places in the world.
Este es su marca.
Este es Xavi.
Son Pen. Shakira.
So, here's a tongue twister to help you with the difference between the s and the sh sounds. She sells seashells on the seashore.
Patricia, I haven't seen her for ages.
Well, I see her very often, you know, because she lives in Castro.
Oh, really? And what does she do?
She sells seashells on the seashore.
And it's profitable.
It's not.
Okay, thank you for listening to the 3rd installment of Patética Fonética. In fact, thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time, where we'll be discussing certain types of international English, the way it's spoken outside of the UK.
Chris is right on the money. You should make sure that you don't mix up the sh and the sounds, because that mistake usually leads to confusion and embarrassment, as in the story that you're about to hear, which involves a foreign speaker of English and his dog.
He wasn't English, but he was speaking English to his dog. I don't know why. But they were standing just on the edge of the pavement, waiting to cross the road. And he said to his dog, "Shit, shit." And I looked at him and I said, he's not allowed to do that here. You'll have to pay a fine if he does that. And he said, "What do you mean? What is the problem?" And I said, "He can't shit here." He said, shit, sit. You mean sit.
So, what should we know about the sh sound? I think it is important to notice that it's a very popular sound all over the world and also in Europe. As a matter of fact, from the Castilian point of view, it's amazingly popular. I mean, it's all over Europe. Think of it.
Xarxa.
Xacobeo.
Sin mielgar.
Gosho, gosho.
Chien.
Scendere.
Chegar. Szapkę.
Schwarz.
Szarpę.
So that should help us understand that Castilian is an exception in Europe. Everybody is pronouncing that sound except for us. We could definitely say that the sh sound does not exist in standard Spanish now, but as we are about to hear, it used to be part of the phonemic system in Spanish, only a long time ago.
In Spanish, the sh sound does not exist in its phonemic system, although it did exist centuries ago. When Quixote was first published, it was referred to as Quixote, although roughly 50 years later, it was referred to as Quixote by most people. Only the most cultured ones could still call it Quixote.
So we have just seen that the sh sound was a standard sound in Spanish a couple of centuries ago. Now, not many of you may know that the sh sound still exists in some varieties of Spanish, like for example Argentinian and some varieties of Andalusian Spanish.
The sh sound is usually normal to use in Argentina. I say, yo como tortilla con cebolla.
In a lot of areas in the south of Spain, the sh sound is very common. For example, I say, el chico del coche conduce por la derecha. This is very normal.
You know, remember that there is a difference between she, ella, and si, and si, and si. You see? Do you see? When you say si, you could refer to three different things, but never to she, the third person singular pronoun. And before I say goodbye, I'd like to read a few lines from a fascinating book, which is the Bible. The Bible is a source of wonderful surprises, but not many people know that it contains what could arguably be described as the earliest mention of a pronunciation problem in recorded history. And we find it in the 12th chapter of the book of Judges. It reads like this. And the Gileadites took the passages of Jordan before the Ephraimites. And it was so that when those Ephraimites which were escaped said, Let me go over, that the men of Gilead said unto him, Art thou an Ephraimite? If he said, Nay, then said they unto him, Say now Shibboleth. And he said, Sibboleth, for he could not frame to pronounce it right. Then they took him and slew him at the passages of Jordan. And there fell at that time of the Ephraimites 42,000. So 42,000 men lost their lives because they couldn't pronounce the sh sound. So now you know. If you don't want to pronounce that sound because your English is understood more easily, because it sounds better, or because it's the right thing, just do it, because it could save your life. Now on this happy note, I have to say goodbye. Bye.
It exists in many, many languages. In English, it can be represented in many, many ways. But I'll tell you a secret. It always sounds the same. Shh.